WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. Thank you for tuning to WVTC Radio Detroit and the Community Bell Show with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. Stay tuned for insightful information Detroiters will find valuable. Text a friend and tell them to watch with you for news you can use. And now, your host, Edna Bell.
Yes, we are witnesses, as that song says, for the Lord. And I am not ashamed to stand up and tell somebody, and especially on this beautiful, beautiful, illustrious August 7th, 2023, that the Lord has blessed you and I to see another day, to be in the land of the living, to make a difference in this place called Detroit. Well, everyone, I'm Alberta Tinsley Talabi, and I'm very grateful that my dear friend Edna thought it not robbery to invite me in as the host for her show to sit in for her today. No one could ever replace her. She is indeed a legend. So, what are we going to talk about today? I've given that a lot of thought. And let's just, first of all, a couple of things I want to hit on. Starting out with domestic violence, we unfortunately have seen a uh, rise in domestic violence over the past 2 weeks, where women have been killed, and we have to ask ourselves how do we end that? You know, relationships are supposed to be built on trust and love, and nowhere in that do you find killing, maiming, or injuring another. But women have found themselves in very tenuous situations where they are being harmed. And you just hear about the ones who have been murdered. There are others who've been badly injured, and sometimes it's not even a physical mark, but it's a psychological. Psychologically, they've been just totally damaged in relationships that have gone south. And so we want to encourage anyone who needs help from a situation of domestic violence to please call 211. That is the United Way hotline. You can call them. Everything is confidential, and they will get you the help that you need. We must say no to domestic violence, and it has to stop now. I also want to talk about what's going on here on the east side of Detroit, where I am. And many of you know, I'm going to transition now. Many of you know that 33 years ago, I founded an organization called MAC Alive. MAC, M-A-C-K, Alive, A-L-I-V-E. So why did I do this? What was the big deal about MAC Alive? Well, let me just say to you that 33 years ago, there was an article written by the Detroit, well, by a department within the city of Detroit. And it was looking at neighborhoods. And they said the worst neighborhood in the city of Detroit, that there was really nothing we could do to help them, was between Mack and Jefferson, St. Jean, and Fisher. I was like, what? I lived between those boundaries on Pennsylvania, the same house I was born in. And I said, how did we become the armpit of the city of Detroit? How did we become a place where there's no hope? And I just refused to accept that. And so I met with many ministers on Mack Avenue, of which at that point there were quite a few churches. And I talked with others and I said, we have to show that we are yet alive. And so that year, we decided to host a parade down Mack Avenue. And that parade, the first year, we said, why are we doing it? We're doing it because Mack is alive. And regardless of what others may say, there are children here, there are grandmothers here, there are men here, there are boys here, there are girls here. Yes, we have needs. Yes, we have challenges, but Mac is still alive, despite of Mac and Bewick, where we oftentimes say that particular store has killed more black men in that community than the Vietnam War. And why do we say that? Because when you think about a liquor store that's been in that community for all those years, and everyone knows Mac and Bewick, they have killed grandfathers, great-grandfathers, fathers, sons, and they're waiting on sons and daughters to be born. And so we are going to stand up, we're going to call it out for what it is, and we're going to continue to try to make a difference. And that's why we said, we are not dead, Mac is alive. And so we've had programs all those years addressing alcohol and substance abuse. And here at Mac Alive, 3745 3746 Fisher, where I'm proud to say Edna Bell is our board chair. She's such a servant, always willing to give. We have AA for persons, and sometimes we have upwards of 30 people at our AA meetings. We also have NA, Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. We have both of those available. And what's really wonderful about it is people come and they enjoy the environment because our environment is very unique. We have an art gallery here at Mac Alive, and that's where everyone meets. So we're creating an environment, a healthy environment for people to enjoy and to be safe. And so we are addressing the issue as best we can. Then we have a counselor on staff here. This woman is phenomenal. Her name is Aldina Goodspeed, and she works with persons. She has a master's in social work and all kind of initials after her name. All she wants to do is serve. We serve ex-offenders. We serve persons who are down on their luck. We serve persons who have marital issues, relationship issues, family counseling. Believe it or not, we offer all of that here at Mac Alive. And there's a dire need for those services in our community where so many people don't go for help. Just feel like, that's why there's so much violence, because people would rather duke it out as opposed to learning how to resolve issues, learning how to work through a crisis, learning that our first reaction should not be harming one another. And of course, if our children see adults doing this, then what do you think our children are going to do? So we try to address all of that here at Mac Alive and in our Eastside community. And getting back to substance abuse, I want to bring up the topic of fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times worse than crack cocaine, marijuana, and everything else put together. Fentanyl is running rampant in the Black community. And this was not always the case. We have to address the issue of fentanyl. It is killing people. I had a figure, I believe it was over 180,000 in the last 3 years have died. No, not just to address. We have so many things. I feel like, oh my God, what can we continue? And yes, we can. We can. We're going to get through this. We have organizations that are providing counseling to people. We have prevention outreach. We have, in particular, I work with folks over on the Boulevard and Mac at QBH, Quality Behavioral Health, where they have inpatient, outpatient, and now they're taking it to the street. They have a mobile van that will be parked every Monday through Saturday from 7 until 2, where people who are active substance users of fentanyl, of any substance that is taking control of their lives, they can come to that mobile van and get help. And we recognize the fact that so many people die because they use dirty needles. Their fentanyl is mixed with some of everything, rat poison, you name it, and they end up dying. Well, this is revolutionary, but this program allows people to come and actually utilize whatever drug they are using as we attempt to move them in the direction of wiping those drugs out of their lives. I know that may sound contradictory. And for me, someone who's fought for the last 50 years trying to rid our community of drugs, but because this thing is killing people the way it is, we have to create a safe environment in order for them to ultimately heal. I know that sounds, what is the word, like an oxymoron. However, this is absolutely required if our people are going to live. And so these mobile units will be set up in some of the hot spots across Detroit. That includes Mac and Bewick, That includes Gratiot and the Boulevard. They're also going to be located at a spot in Southwest Detroit, and the last one will be E-Course. And there you will find these mobile vans. Actually, they're trailers. They're huge, and it really is a wonderful thing that it's available to people in our city who need help. And again, the vans come, these trucks or the buses. There are 3 buses that will be located at each site. And on these buses, you will have a physician, 2 nurses, and social workers to help those individuals who are suffering. And I say all the time, I don't think anyone took that first hit, uh, took that first smoke in hopes of becoming an addict. It doesn't work like that. You believe that you have control until you lose control. And at that point, people need immediate help. So that's what we're trying to do. But I've always said, when it comes to prevention, if you never start, you don't have to stop. So we want to keep our children, our teenagers, our young people away from those drugs, period, because they are destroying an entire generation, and we cannot allow that to continue. And so, you know me, for many years, what did I talk about? Denounce the 40 ounce. Denounce the 40 ounce. When we found 40 ounces in those brown paper bags everywhere across the city. But our campaign was successful. And although we know people continue to use those very poisonous 99 $2 wines, it's not even wine, it's poison in a bottle. We know that it had an impact, and it stopped some of those manufacturers in their quest to bring any and everything that they could possibly think of to our community. And the fact of it is, it may have started in our community, but it didn't end in our community. And we find that every class of people, every race of people, every community is impacted. And perhaps that's why now they're coming up with all of these programs to try to put an end to it. Because when it was just us, it was just us. So I hope you get the picture. If anyone is listening and needs help, you can call us here at Mac Alive, 824-3900. Again, Mac Alive number is 313-824-3900. And of course, if you need any resource in Wayne County, you can call 211. 211. That's United Way, and they have the hookup on everything. So I hope you will, in fact, call that number if you find yourself in need or someone that you know. It's a shame when we get information and we don't share it with others. That's just not acceptable. Information is in fact power, and you need to share that power and make sure that others have information that they may need. You know, they say a closed fist, nothing can get in and nothing can get out. So we must open our hands, our hearts, our heads, our minds to our community and make certain that good news doesn't stay in the closet, that resources that are available are widely available and well known. Does that make sense? I hope so. So Why don't we move now to something that's going to be coming up, and I'm so excited about it. What am I talking about? I'm going to tell you again, the 33rd annual Mac Alive Parade and Rally, August 26th, 2023. Our 33rd year coming down Mac Avenue, proclaiming that Mac is alive. Oh, if you could see the children when they hear the bands coming down the street, running to Mac, you'd be so excited. You'd love it. It's just a joy. And every year, for 33 years, we've never missed a parade. Oh my God. I will be 69 this year. Let's see, take 33 from 69. Oh Lord, have mercy. I think we started when I was 36. Is that math correct? That's okay. I still feel like that first day we had our parade. Just wonderful, just committed, just excited. And the parade's grown by leaps and bounds. Oh my God. I mean, it's huge. We have over 2,000 participants, and they come down where they once said, "There's nothing you could do to help the people here." The devil is a liar. And we stand on the word of our God, and we know that his love prevails and will see us through everything. And so our community is excited. In fact, tonight we have our weekly parade meeting. And if anyone listening would like to join us, we meet every Monday at 5:30 here at 3, 4, no, I'm sorry, they both add up 3 and 7. That's what's going on there. And I think that was my daughter calling. But Artina, can you call Carl and see what she wants and tell her I'm on the radio? Sorry, folks, it's live. But what else would you like to talk about? We talked. What makes the parade so special? The fact that we're going to have 4 floats this year from the parade company. I don't know of another organization that rents those floats out, and boy, it costs. It's costing us $4,000 for those 4 floats this year. And we make sure all of our seniors who ride on the float. So we have floats that can hold some of them 25 people, some of them 50. So we make sure our seniors are all taken care of. It is so much fun, so much fun. So again, we begin at St. Jean and Mac, and there's a store right there. I think it's called Louis. I don't know, but anyway, the store, they just sent us a $200 donation to help out with the parade, and we're very thankful for that. This thing doesn't run just off of air or hot air. It cost us $25,000 to pull this off. $25,000 to cover all the costs of the parade. I already told you about the cost for the floats, which is 4,000, balloons, characters. We have just, you just wouldn't believe it. We give donations to those schools that are marching in the parade, okay? We pay for all their transportation, the food. Folks, it adds up. It really does. So, yeah, maybe we have a beneficiary out there, benefactor who wants to say, oh, let me see if I can help Mac Alive with this 33rd annual parade. If your heart is leading you in that direction, please feel free to call 824-3900. Or you can go on our webpage, which is keepmacalive@yahoo.com. Wow. So I just said a mouthful, huh? All right. So now where do we go from here? Maybe we can talk a little bit about education. How about that? Detroit Public Schools. We need folks to come back to Detroit Public Schools. I feel in many ways it was a design to destroy our public schools. When all of a sudden there are no more boundaries, you can go to any school you want pretty much in Wayne County. Any school that accepts state funding has to allow kids in. So what happens? A lot of Detroit parents said, you know what, too much violence. I want my child to be safe. I'm going to send them out I'm going to send them out of the city. And we lost a lot of kids. Last time I heard, we had more students in charter schools, or actually it's a neck and neck. Charter schools and Detroit public schools, they had about the same number of students, which I believe when I read that was about 27,000 each. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I read it. But all I'm saying is that Detroit public schools provide an excellent education for our students. And I'm sure the charters are doing their best. But you know what happens is when a child goes to charter school, a parent has had to make a conscientious decision to pull their kid out of public schools and put them in that charter school. So that takes a certain amount of savvy. And what I'm saying by that is the best students get out. And so Detroit public schools are left with the additional challenge of kids who need special help. While many of these charters, of course, they're going to encounter that, but not to the degree Detroit public schools encounter it, and it's wrong. I see that whole charter thing, it was nothing but a money grab, a money grab. You know, we voted, I believe it was for $1 billion to go towards education. Sometimes I wish we hadn't voted that way, or I wish it had not passed, because once it passed, Lord have mercy. Everybody and their mama came looking for that money. And so what does the state decide to do? They got in on it too. By allowing charter schools, unlimited charter schools can now exist. And they can receive part of that funding. Now, in the past, public dollars went to public schools, not private schools, because if you make a decision to send your child to private school, then you should pay for it. But that's changed. In New Orleans, you know that they have total control of New Orleans schools, charters. There are no more public schools in New Orleans. I feel like we've been sleeping giants, and it's time to wake the heck up. Education is, we all know, extremely critical. And I can tell you that Detroit has some winners. I mean, people, I went to a conference for teachers recently, and my God, the commitment of those people just made me want to go back to school and become a teacher. We have to work with these public schools. Can you volunteer? Do you have 2 hours a week to say, I'm going to go up to this school and I'm going to help wherever the principal feels I can help? Do you have any time at all? If you do, make it available to our school students. They deserve it. And besides, you'll get something out of it too. It's extremely rewarding. Now, school is about to start back soon. Close that door. I'm sorry. I've got to close this door. 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. I'm back now. Whew. And I was talking about the need to tie into a school, tie into the school in your community. It can be an elementary school. I actually, a few years ago, on the first day of school, I would go up to school and just say hello to the kindergartners as they were walking into school and the first graders. I'm going to do that again this year. I kind of pivoted and started going to high schools, but now I think we need to get back in there and let those babies know that somebody cares. So I'm just asking, whatever you can give, whatever you can do, with your time to help our school students, please do it. Please. It's just so important. You know, Detroit has changed so much. I still live in the house I was born in at 2229 Pennsylvania. I'm not ashamed. I love to say that. 2229 is where my mom and daddy brought me home as a baby. And they raised 8 of us in that house. And I can recall a time when there were over 100 children on my block. Well, heck, my family had 8. We almost had 10% of the 100. But there were just kids everywhere, 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 everywhere. My, has that changed today. And I spoke about this a little bit earlier. From 40 houses on my block to today, there only being 7. And when I think about the fact that, what was it, 5 years ago, there were no children at all on my block. And it troubled me. It worried me because without children, you don't have a future. You don't have a future. And so the Lord heard my cry. Didn't give me no more babies. But across the street from me, 2 babies were born. Next door to me, they adopted a baby. And across the street from me, the gentleman is a foster parent. And he keeps at least 5 children at any given time. So we went from having 0 to being a hero, as we now have a street with laughter and children. And even though 90% of the houses are no longer there, those of us who remain take very, very good care of our property. And we try to do everything we can to make it a safe environment. But even in my neighborhood, a place like, well, I moved away for a little when I got married. But when I tell you things have changed, oh my goodness. It's more vanilla ice cream up in there than I could ever imagine. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Yes, we have new neighbors. And it's funny because when they first began to come, they would actually put up, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the old West and how the cowboys would put up barracks. They have those wooden fences, and then they could look out and see you, but you couldn't look in. Honestly, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when this first started happening, they all had them damn barracks put up. And I was like, oh, this is awful. Well, I guess once they saw that they could live there peacefully, many of the barracks came down. But there are still a few places around there where you cannot see anything. It's just amazing. And I'm like, who would want to live somewhere where they're not neighborly and comfortable and willing to work with neighbors? So, but it's a huge turnaround in many of our communities. And when I tell you, between St. Jean and East Grand Boulevard, Mack and Jefferson, whoa. What I'm talking about has occurred tenfold. And I sometimes wonder, wow, where did these folks come from? Because it was not considered desirable to live here 20 years ago, but now all of a sudden, it's a hot spot. So what does that mean? It means that my neighbor in my neighborhood, I can recall in Detroit, they were selling homes for $1,000, $5,000. And today, there are homes being sold in this neighborhood upwards of $150,000. That's amazing. And I think there had to be a formula. And in my mind, the formula went like this. Okay, we will tear down a certain percentage of this neighborhood. We will remain a certain percentage of homes, but guess what? We're going to put Section 8 and let people in this community know that they can now move their families to Sterling Heights, move your family to Southfield, move your family to what they might, East Point. Now, you know, East Point is a city that didn't even want to be called East Detroit. Lord have mercy. They changed their name because they didn't want any part of Detroit in their name. I know if you're listening, you probably don't even know anything about that, but it's the truth. Now, so my point is this. We had all of these things occurring, circumstances, I think, and you know, they said the same formula they put in across America, in Cleveland, wherever you had a large concentration of African American and Hispanic people, the same formula went to work. So let me just cut to the chase. At the end of the day, they made the community rock bottom, easy to get out, move everybody out, and then a lot of folks left. As I told you, 10 houses on my block today when there used to be 30. Um, so in doing that, it made it easy for others to move in, buy those homes at low prices. I don't know Mr. Gilbert personally, but I heard that at one point he did an inventory of every house in the city of Detroit, every block. Ah, data is important. It tells a lot. One hopes that it was used for good purposes, but who knows, right? All I can say is, like I've told people for the last 30 years, if you got property, hold on to it. Because land does not give birth to itself. All you see is all we're ever going to have. And therefore, the value of land will continue to grow. And if you know anything about the east side, there was a gentleman who planted trees called Hans, and he purchased over 1,000 lots on the east side to plant trees. Well, people said there was some controversy, you know, and they said he's not planting those trees forever. He's planting those trees so he can eventually build houses. Well, I'm hearing more and more that that may start occurring, but you know, we just have to be diligent and vigilant and aware and awake and sober. Can I use say sober? We got to stay sober, you all, to deal with some of what's coming down. And I just feel that Detroit has so much. It's been so good to me, and I pray it's been good to all of you, because there is no place like Detroit anywhere else in the country. And I'm just grateful that my parents laid their stake down here on the east side of Detroit. Although all sides are good, I am biased and I'm not ashamed to say I'm an East Sider. And how many of you, some of you remember what they call Black Bottom? Some people say they called it Black Bottom because their dirt was so rich and fertile. I always thought they called it Black Bottom because that's where all of us lived at first. My grandfather lived on Elmwood, across from Elmwood Cemetery. That's where my mother was born. And you want to hear an interesting story? Back then, in 1945, a lot of Black people were moving from the South, especially Black men, up north to get jobs, right? So my grandfather, William McDuffie, who, by the way, this building that McAlive is housed in was his at one time, and we can, anyway, let me get back to my original story. And my original story is that um, my grandfather's home on Elmwood, many Black men from the South would come there and stay until they got on their feet. And my grandfather's house ended up serving as the place where all of his daughters, Mary, my mother, met Willie George, who came to stay on Elmwood, to room there. Met my mom. You know what happened. Ruth Miller, my mother's sister, met her husband, Arthur, who came to stay on Elmwood. They had 9 kids. My mom had 8. And then my Aunt Vivian, you know it, met her husband, John Sellers, when he came through at that house on Elmwood. Now you tell me that's not a story to be told. But they all had wonderful husbands and amazing. No one divorced and lots of kids. So, and another story about my mother and her sisters. It was one also named Susie. And my mama told me that one day they were going to look for jobs on Jefferson, and it was the 4 of them. And they went to every store and place on Jefferson, and no one got hired. Well, I read, it's been a year, about maybe 10 years ago, a story about 4 white girls who also walked down Jefferson, who today all of them live in Sterling Heights. They all got jobs and eventually graduated from college in Detroit, and they all moved to Sterling Heights. Do you see what I'm saying there? The blatant racism that our people have had to deal with that goes untold. That goes untold. So we're wrapping up now. I see we are down, oh my, to our last 11 minutes. And I'm so grateful and thankful that I've had this time to talk about life and the cards that it has dealt me and my community, and how we continue to rally. I'll just recap and tell you that on August 26th, that's August 26th, the Mac Alive, the 33rd annual Mac Alive Parade and Rally will kick off on the corner of St. Jean and Mac. Everyone's invited. Let me tell you this other quick story. Now, did I mention to you that part of the reason why we got started back in the day, 33 years ago, they had a parade coming down Lafayette. They had a parade coming down East Warren. And I went to the people who started the parade on Lafayette, and I said, hey, I have 2 little nephews. Can they be in the parade? And they told me, no, this parade is only for children in this community. I was like, whoa. I went up on East Warren 33 years ago, and I asked if our community could be a part of their parade. I was again told, it's really a community parade for people in the community. And I said, to hell with all that, I'm going to start my own. And now look at us, 33 years and counting. And one of the biggest community parades around.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit. You're
The views and opinions expressed on the previous broadcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of WVTC Radio Detroit, its advertisers, or affiliates.
You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.